Hi, everyone. Today I'm talking with Rebecca Bernhard from Minnesota. We're having a conference coming up for the Minnesota and Dakotas chapter of AILA, and it was going to be a big conference flying over there, but the coronavirus hit, so plans kind of changed. And they did a neat thing, which is they're going to do a virtual conference now, scheduled for May 29th, 2020. It's coming up pretty quickly, actually. And so I want to let everyone know it's happening. And Rebecca and I were going to be on a panel. She's moderating. Well, why don't you talk about a little bit, Rebecca? Let's talk about the panel is about.
Yeah, we are doing a very innovative panel. We're talking about innovations in the practice of immigration, and I wish I knew that this was coming up like in the wake of COVID, but we actually had this idea before COVID, and we were going to tell people how they needed to sort of push themselves into the modern era and embrace, the virtual world and the virtual office and all those virtual tools, but also talk about some other creative innovations as well. And now we get to do it in real time because we had to be completely innovative to continue having this conference.
Yeah, we got some great people. We also have Roman. What's Roman's last name?
Zelichenko? Did
Zelichenko
I
and
did I
Rosanna.
add it? Did I add a syllable there? Zelichenko, I think.
Yeah, forgive us. And Rosanna Tussey was a great online paralegal that people use from across the country, talking about just how systems we have. And I'm going to talk about marketing and all the kind of stuff that I do that people see all the time. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I was really looking forward to coming to Minnesota. I got the hotel, the plane trip, everything. Because they say it's like such a nice place, and especially the time of year is perfect because it's not going to be bone chillingly cold.
If you can see out my window, it's a lovely day today, and it is like maybe in the high 60s, early 70s. So it's beautiful, and this May is absolutely the time to visit the Twin Cities.
Well,
If
the Minnesota, what I found is it has a great immigration environment for immigration lawyers. Well, there's a lot of immigrants there from all over the place. There's a lot of medicine kind of stuff. They're sort of doing national interest waivers and EB2s and all this and EB1s. But like I've connected with a lot of immigration lawyers in Minnesota. They're always really friendly and open to sharing information. So it's such a good environment you have.
We feel very lucky here. I'm not a native Minnesotan, so I've been here 20 years, and I'm still the new kid because it's a tight knit community. But I think you're right. I think the presence of institutions like 3M. Which is, very technological and, patent driven that attracts scientists. Then there's the Mayo Clinic, and then there's the University of Minnesota. So those are, and then several other large clients, or large corporations rather, that really attracts foreign talent in a way, especially in the STEM, kind
Yeah.
of larger STEM, but it's a really great hub for a lot of kind of business development. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of folks here on E2.
Well, good stuff. So what is it? Because you do employment law as well, and immigration law. And they kind of always, immigration is one of those things that can attach themselves to certain areas and work well together. What is just generally your path to briefly like how you got into this space?
Sure. So I'm a second career lawyer, and I was a director of labor relations before I went to law school. So I had this connection to employment law
Hmm.
from my pre-law career. And so labor and employment, we split those. So labor means unions. So I actually worked for a couple companies that had unions, and I was like the management person bargaining for the union. So then I went to law school. I took this immigration class, and it was awesome. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. But then I get my job because, again, I was a second career person. So my husband's like, okay, time to start earning money. So I go and I get a job at a law firm, like all good law graduates, and I get slated into the labor and employment group because when you see my kind of pre-law background, why wouldn't you put me in the labor and employment group? But I then meet this really great senior partner who at the time had this international practice and had a small component of immigration for his foreign clients who were buying businesses or investing in companies and needed to be brought over. So it wasn't the typical H-1B dependent kind of practice the way most business immigration is. It was really a lot about L's and E's. Those were kind of the two areas that he really serviced folks. And then a lot of outstanding O's as well, because, the
Yeah.
like I said here, the kind of medical and university community. So he let me sort of practice with him. So I was able to build on his kind of business immigration and develop a little bit more of a robust practice as I continued at that firm doing just business only kind of. So really, mostly my clients are the corporate folks who then have foreign talent that
Was there a
needs to come
shift
in.
in just general your career now going from on the labor side and unions to going other side to see the dark side, if you will?
Well, no, so when I was working with unions, I was in management, so I was always on the dark side. But
Okay.
but I'd like to say my heart's on the right side, and I actually think that makes me a good advisor to people because I can sort of help them understand. Labor is all about let's make a deal, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to strike. No one really wants to do a lockout. They just have those tools. So, but it's been really cool to have that experience. I think for my business immigration because again, it's all about understanding how the workplace works and making that argument. So I feel like they've all really worked together nicely, even though I think most people have a reaction when they first find out, like, wait, how did you get here and how do you do that?
So you got into immigration, you got your feet with that, doing a lot of business cases, and then what happened next?
So I had, by the way, through my senior partner, I had learned of a guy who I now practice with, and I'm super excited about. But he had been kind of in my associate shoes before I was there, which is why the senior partner was looking for someone.
This is Bob
Uh,
Weber.
and this is Bob Weber. So many people know the Weber Law Firm. So last year, almost a year ago now, Dorsey and Whitney, which is the firm that I'm a partner at, we merged with Bob Weber's law firm, Weber Law Firm. So we were able to expand our immigration practice, which I'm super excited about. And he would have been part of this panel too, but he's got other stuff going on as well. But at any rate, I had to put my immigration practice on hold for about 5 years because I got wooed to go in-house in the late 2000s. A client wooed me in, but they were a federal contractor and with high security clearances, so they didn't need any more of they couldn't hire any non-immigrants. They could
Yeah.
certainly hire green card people, but we weren't really sponsoring anybody for those. They kind of already had to have their green card in order to go through our security clearance. So I just put it on hold. But then when I left that and decided I wanted to go back into private practice, because I'm a people person and I really like the autonomy and
Yeah.
being your own kind of boss, even in a law firm. I got here, and a similar thing happened to me that happened in my first firm, which was another really prominent immigration attorney here in the Twin Cities, Seiko MacGyver. She comes up and says to me, "I understand you worked with Ed Hayward, who was the guy who trained me at the other firm." I said, "Yeah," and she's like, "Well, I need help doing immigration." And I said, "Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. I would love to get back into it." So I had to relearn it a little in the first year back, which was 2015 through 2016. But luckily for me, it wasn't like coming back in 2017 or 18 because
Yeah.
that would have been really hard. So I
Right,
was able to get, yeah. So go ahead.
right
Sorry.
when things start going really downhill with L1s and stuff, right? 2016 mark, it drops on
Right.
about.
Right. Exactly. So I was able to get back up into my kind of comfort level before the world went topsy turvy with the 2016 elections.
And so now that you're back, you do partial immigration, partial employment law kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd say probably somewhere between 35 and 45. If you count cap season, then it's probably 45. But generally, over the course of the year, about 35 to 40% of my practice is immigration, and then the other part is labor and employment, and it's really connected to the kind of corporate transactional side of our. Dorsey is kind of known as an M&A firm, so it's really supporting that group.
Has the question come up a lot from people calling you about what happens if they're furloughing people? What happens about any unemployment? All this kind of, because you're the person for sure they're going to go after and task. Yeah,
Yes.
like I don't know, go somewhere else. But
No, I have to answer lots of questions. And it's funny because on the one hand, there's all these anti-discrimination laws. So you can't pick somebody because they're on a visa to lay them off. On the other hand, if you want to furlough someone as opposed to actually fire them, then you still have to pay them. So you're not getting the same value proposition for furloughing someone on an H-1B than you would if you were furloughing someone not on an H-1B.
Mhm.
So suddenly you're going to not furlough the person on the H-1B because you can't really save money anyway. But now you absolutely are discriminating against the U.S. worker. So it's a very knotty issue that you have to sort out. We've been able to get creative with amendments, amending furloughing people on H-1B by amending the terms of their working relationship. If it's an actual reduction in force and they're actually firing people, then we just have to sort of deal with the whole notification afterwards and
Yeah.
can we give them a grace period and all that kind of stuff.
So you must have really busy last couple 2 months dealing with this stuff.
Yes. And then there's the whole, can somebody collect unemployment? And that's been a big question
Yeah,
because I think
I
the
get that every
states,
day. I get emails on
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And states are overwhelmed with unemployment right now. I mean, who could imagine, was it
Mhm.
30 million people or something like
Yeah.
that? So they're just giving everybody unemployment, and but the problem is they're going to sort it out later. I actually have a really nice client who's a classical guitarist, and she's in Germany right now. She teaches in Oslo in Germany and plays classical guitar. And she got a stimulus check because she was here in 2018. So she had like tax returns. And so it was kind of funny because they were like, my fellow American, here's your stimulus check. It's like, yeah, no. She was like, I think I have to return this, right? And I'm like, yeah, you better return that. But it was, so they just don't, they're going to sort it out later though. So
Yeah.
if you don't, if you don't take care of it now, it's not like it's really a windfall. So yeah, it can get complicated that way.
How's cap season this year?
Cap season for us was pretty good. We had a pretty good selection rate, so we feel lucky about that. I always get heartbroken though because inevitably the one person who doesn't get selected is always the person who doesn't have like the extended stem or some other option, right? It's like, and you just wish you could say, oh no, we actually meant this one was selected and not this one, especially when it's from the same company and you've got to
Yeah.
sort of tell people, we're sorry, like this one was selected and he didn't really need to be till next year and you
Yeah.
weren't selected. But yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't heard any, we're just starting now. Well, I should say 2 weeks ago, we started actually filing our cases, to meet the deadline. But we waited a week before we did the registration just because we wanted to hear all of the chatter
Yeah.
on the Ayla
Smart.
blogs and from you and people like that on like, okay, what's going wrong with this registration process? So we had some, we didn't really have glitches for our registration, so we
Oh,
feel lucky
wonderful.
about that.
Yeah, and who knows what's gonna happen next year if they tweak it again and all this kind of stuff. But somewhat a smoother. But it's gonna see how businesses deal. I mean, there's firms that are just their whole business model is based on the H-1B, and
Yeah.
then when this registration system comes out, it really can knock them out to a large extent. They have to restructure pretty drastically. So it's gonna be interesting to see the dynamics of that business model in the coming years.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that the registration was better, but it's also not clearly as horrible as we thought like the
Yeah.
first time they started introducing the concept.
Perfect. So, what do you like to do in your pastime other than immigration law?
Up until March 13th, I was almost an empty nester because I have a 20-year-old who turns 21 next month, and they went to NYU. So I was like, "Yoo-hoo! I'm gonna have like a whole life back to myself." And my husband and I were taking walks in the evening and going out to dinner more often. But then, of course, COVID happened and NYU emptied everybody out on March 18th. So now we are not empty nesters anymore. But but my husband and I actually really like to travel, and so that's kind of been hard in the current climate. But I'm also an avid mystery reader, and I'm like not highbrow. It's like brain candy. It's like TV, right? I just love mysteries that like you can read like in 3 bus rides to work because
Yeah.
I in the non-COVID world, I usually take the light rail and the bus. So it's like, yep, just something to escape. So I feel like I'm catching up on all of my series mysteries.
Now, the one question with regards to your employment practice is that state-based employment kind of stuff, or how much could you jump around with that?
Okay, so there are a lot of federal laws. So like the big ones are like Title VII, which is the main anti-discrimination law, and then the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then the federal wage and hour laws. And so, Department of Labor and the EEOC are, of course, federal agencies. So you can practice in front of them as long as you're licensed in a state. But it is not as portable as immigration is. So immigration, obviously a federal practice. States also have like nuances. Dorsey, I'm lucky Dorsey's got, 19 offices. So although I do support mainly our New York, our Salt Lake City, and our Minnesota office, we've got people in those offices
Mhm.
that I can be affiliated with. And then we've got labor and employment people in many of our other offices too. So we try to have a national footprint
How was
because
the
it
switch?
does.
Because I mean, the firm you were at wasn't this big. I mean, it was a small firm. Now you're part of this huge thing. Like, how is that switch personally going? How long did it take to adjust to something like that? Go to a large firm.
So uh, I would say that I'm still adjusting to the downside to large firm, which is there's a lot of bureaucracy, and I mean, this has been an interesting test for us. I feel like we're doing well, relatively speaking, but it is hard to pivot fast when you've got, 250 people who own the firm and want to make decisions, right?
Yeah.
Now we're governed by a policy committee board and then a management committee, and actually. The management committee is like the C-suite, so they're empowered to make decisions day by day, and then the policy committee is like the board, which is like elected by the partners. So, so we're a little more nimble maybe than if we really just had 250 attorneys who had to reach consensus on everything. But it's still jarring when you kind of when you want to do something really creative. Like I was telling my marketing person, oh, I'm going to be interviewed by John and he does these podcasts, and I'm thinking maybe in this new world I should think about this. And he's like, yes, we're going to have a committee talking about that in 3 weeks. And I'm like, a committee to talk about podcasts in 3 weeks. Okay, fine. So that part's still hard, but I really liked the culture was such that they've managed to keep kind of small town culture, and maybe it's our Midwestern roots because
Yeah.
Minnesota's our headquarters. So it feels small even though it's big in that way, in the friendliness way.
And how does, I mean, I don't know what kind of thesis structure your firm had before when if it was a flat rate, how does that adjust to these other lawyers? I mean, you did employment law, so you probably did hourly kind of stuff, but how does the immigration flat rate or the, people not wanting to pay as much system come into a regular law firm, which is mainstream and, people charge a lot more? How
Yeah.
does that work?
So this is one of the reasons why we were so excited to merge with Bob, because he is flat fee, and we needed to get smarter about that. Because I think gone are the days when you can say, "Well, I'm your lawyer, and I charge $1 billion an hour." And if they weren't gone before March, they're gone now.
Mhm.
And so we kind of knew, and I think in this way we're not any different than like a corporation that says, oh, I need to get smart about something. I know, we'll go merge with somebody who already knows it. So in that way, I was saying that I feel like there's pressure on labor and employment in general, and for sure in immigration. So we need to get smart about it. And so our immigration is flat fee, although we do have what we call the bespoke immigration work, which we charge hourly for.
Mhm.
That would be your CEO who needs to bring in his cousin's niece's daughter's nephew. Uh,
Yeah.
and
But
we don't know what it is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quick question. How do I bring how do I do an EB5 for my cousin? Like what? It's not a quick question.
Right, right. So we do a lot of like strategy and general stuff on an hourly basis, and then once we say, okay, we're going to get a blanket L, or we're going to get an E2, and we're going to bring over 2 managers, then that stuff is all done on a fixed fee.
They have a really good contract specifies exactly what is included, what's not included.
Yeah,
I have an
exactly.
old contract where this client like disappeared for 2 years and he came back yesterday. And I look at my old contract, I'm like, oh man, like everything has changed. I can't even go. So I told him, listen, like there's travel bans, there's this and that, there's public charge now. Like we can't, this contract doesn't make sense anymore. You disappeared for 2 years. And so we got in that little argument. I said, you shouldn't have disappeared for 2 years. So we got to get back on track.
Yeah.
But just having a well-written contract, and you got to constantly update it and relook at it to avoid things popping up that could be problematic.
That's a great point. So that's the upside to a big firm, is that we have people, right? We have people who are constantly looking at our engagement letters and like, okay, we need to update them manually, or we need to do this, and we're going to read the rules in every state, right? Does this comply with Utah's ethics? Does this comply with California's ethics, right? All that stuff. But then that's the downside too, because if I met you on the street and I said, okay, John, yeah, I can help you. Let's do it this way. And I go back, my people are like, you can't tell him that. We
Yeah.
need 6 people to approve your arrangement.
You probably have massive, what is that when you need it, not compliance, but when they need to check to see if um, they're not handling another firm, like a case that's related to
Oh, conflict
conflict
checks.
checks and stuff like that. When I'm a
Yep.
small solo, there's not much conflict going on. You catch it pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, no, we have a very robust conflicts check. Now, again, we try to stay on one side of the employment fence, and that helps it. So that even when we are representing an individual, like they're an O themselves, or
Yeah,
they need a national interest waiver or something, we usually don't have a conflict because it's not
that's great.
we haven't been on the other side.
Well, awesome. Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you
Yeah.
again at the conference. Hopefully, some other time soon, we can see each other in person or at an ALO conference when those happen again.
Exactly. But thank you for
But
the
yeah,
opportunity, and thanks for doing the panel with me.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. I look forward
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.